Howdy folks. Today we're going to take a look at how to deploy a website to Netlify. What is Netlify, you might ask? Well, it is a cloud provider similar to Heroku or Render, but it has a big focus on front-end applications. You can deploy a backend application to it using their serverless functions, but it really shines when it comes to deploying the kind of application you would be making with Webpack or Vite. Let's get into it. So to get started, I've created a very simple example here. I've got a Vite config set up here. I've got my index.html and my basic render. You notice this is still set up with the older version of React, but that's okay. It should still work. And my app, which is very simple and just has a simple header. It says welcome to Netlify test. And you can see this is basically what it looks like. So to get started, you're going to want to sign up. If you already have an account, you can log in, but go to sign up, and you can sign up with GitHub, GitLab, or Bitbucket. I imagine most people don't have a Bitbucket account, but your GitHub account should be fine. Just go sign up with that. You're going to see this authorize application here, and this is basically the OAuth connection between Netlify and GitHub. I'm going to authorize that. It'll redirect me. It says, okay, how are you planning to use this? A bunch of different questions, which you do unfortunately have to answer, and continue to deploy. So deploy our first project. These are the different things that you can hook up with. So what we went through before was actually OAuth. That's how they figure out who you are. But on top of that, there's a bunch of different systems that you can use to hook into for deploys. Unlike Heroku, well, Heroku can do this, but like Render, Netlify wants to connect directly to your GitHub and deploy that way. So we're going to click on GitHub here. And what this is going to do is this is actually going to install the Netlify app on my GitHub profile. And you might be wondering what's the difference. Well, what we just went through before was the OAuth hookup, which is again an identity thing so that Netlify knows who I am. Now I got to give it additional permission to do various things. So it can act on my behalf, doing various things, know which resources I can access, and look at my email address, which is fine. Authorize it. It's authorized, and I've got a couple options I can pick. I'm going to pick this one because this is where my repository is going to be. Install my personal account, and so you can pick specific repositories. I'm going to select all repositories for now just because I don't actually have a repository yet for this. It's going to give it read access to the code and write access to commit statuses and issues, which is kind of interesting, but makes sense. It doesn't have write access to the code, so that should be safe. Okay, we're going to install that. It's going to send me an authentication code. Okay, and once I put that in, you can see now it's looking at just my specific repositories. So these are the only ones I have here. Now, what I want to do then is I need to actually create a repository for this code. So let's go ahead and do that. Go into GitHub. I'm going to create a new repository. I call it Netlify test. I'm going to leave it. It shouldn't matter if you do public or private, and the reason is because Netlify should have, and you can see it has access to this private repository. It should have access to everything that you have access to. So it's not like an outsider. It is acting as you. So I'm going to leave it private. I'm not going to initialize the repository. Remember, if you initialize the repository, that's if you don't have code already, but I already have code, so I don't want to screw up the history. Create it. All right, and then we'll come down here. We're going to copy this. Well, actually, I'll just grab this remote add origin, go into our terminal, run a git init, add my origin, add commit, project commit, and we're going to push to main. All right, now that's set up. Load this, make sure it's there. That looks good. All my files are in there. So now I go to here. I'm going to refresh this page. Oh, I guess I have to go through GitHub again to load that. Okay, and then I see here's my new repository. So now if I actually want to deploy this repository, I click here. Let's deploy your project. Yep, that's me. Okay, that's my team. Main branch. This is the build command, and publishing to dist. It can figure that out, I imagine, because this is the build command that it detects. Oh no, because I have a pnpm lock file, that's why. So if you're using a package lock, it'll probably have a different command here. It'll probably use like npm run build. Dist, it figured out because of the Vite config. Vite will publish to dist by default. And so you can see there's my index.html and my JavaScript. So if you're using Webpack, hopefully it'll pick that up as well. Okay, let's go. I'm not going to edit the build settings for now because I shouldn't need them for this. Let's deploy. Takes a minute. And so you can see now it gives me a deploy log. And there's a bunch of different things. I can play an emoji game if I want. I can cancel deploy, do some settings here. This might take a minute. Alright, so now it's finished. Okay, I'm going to, this is what they called it, inspiring empanada, and then an ID number. Dismiss that, and I just want to take a look at the logs here, because this is, you can see these stages that it went through. Initializing. You can see a lot of this has to do with actually setting up the system. It's pulling in caching, it's git cloning, it's installing dependencies, it's installing Python and Ruby and PHP and Node for whatever reason. And here's my package install right there using pnpm, grabbing all the dependencies. It's running, this happens automatically as part of the post install. So that just happens. I imagine it does it itself, but this is because Heroku that's how Heroku works, and this is set up for Heroku. Now here's the build. It goes in here, it says okay. Here's my build. It's going to run pnpm run build, which again runs the Vite build again, which was already done, but it's not going to hurt to do it again. So if you really want to avoid that, because Netlify is doing the build itself, you just go into your package.json, and the reason it built for me is I have a post install in here. If you get rid of the post install, runs by default after the install, and so it's going to run that build. If you just get rid of, if you're deploying on Netlify, you can just get rid of this command because it's already running the build for you. So let's see, it runs the build, it puts out index.html, the CSS, the JavaScript. So yeah, we're all good. Then it deploys from the dist folder, which is good because that's where everything is going to be. And you know what? It looks like everything is headed. I think maybe the logs are just duplicating. That's what's happening. Does some cleanup, and by that it means it's basically it caches your node modules and all of your build steps, and then it removes them from the build machine. Heroku does a similar thing. Then down here, a bunch of post-processing stuff, and now I look down here. Here are the files that got deployed. Here's my index.html and my assets, which looks correct. And now I can come all the way back up here, open production deploy, and there's my app. And you notice this is the branch that I was on, and this is the name of the application. So now you can send this out to someone. Netlify also has the ability to work with custom domains if you really want to, but you can see if you've got an application set up with Vite and it works well to run in your local host, it's actually super easy to deploy it via Netlify. Hope this is helpful, and I'll see you all next time.